Okay.
I know what Sean. I know what Sean wants to string. He wants to string some more lights up on his house because the last time that we talked, he was in the middle of, lighting up the whole neighborhood. So how did that go?
The neighborhood is lit up. The outdoor grill's done by tomorrow at 5. The whole outdoor kitchen. The putting green in the backyard be done by next week.
Wow.
At the latest by the week. I am doing it all. I don't know what the hell for, but I'm doing it all, brother.
Hey, now I know why you do shows all over the fucking country every day. You do your little 15 or 20 minute hits.
Shit?
Yeah.
Dude, I'm dumb, but I'm not stupid, brother. I got news for you. Never go broke taking a profit. And
my God!
One day if I ever sell this, I'm going to hammer somebody on the sell. So there you go.
Oh, I absolutely love it. All right, great. Listen. You and I, because you were picking up your dog on the western part of Texas, we didn't get a chance to talk on Thursday. And then Friday, Aaron Rodgers went on the Pat McAfee show and all hell broke loose. And shit, I heard him on the show today and he's getting killed from everywhere. What's your take on this?
I don't give a shit if Aaron Rodgers is vaccinated. I don't, Grant. We have gotten to a point, Sean, that's selfish. Well, I'm not a member of the Green Bay Packers. I understand if you're a Packer that you feel like, well, what if it cuts into my paycheck? I've said this before. Common sense and respect. Now, listen, I don't know if Aaron Rodgers, when he was talking about his immunization, was trying to – Aaron can get a dig in on people once in a while. I know that. And listen, I'm a huge Aaron Rodgers fan. If he showed up at my door today, would I say, come on in? Yes, you don't have to wear a mask or be vaccinated. Maybe I think different, but I'm not worried about that. Does that make sense?
Yep.
I'm going to try to trust people. Now, I just, and I love Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, but he's calling Aaron a dumb jock and stuff. That bothers me. The same things I've had Kareem on plenty of times and have loved him forever. But the same things that would bother Kareem Abdul-Jabbar about people pigeonholing people into stuff is the same thing. Because Aaron Rodgers is far from stupid. You may not like his decisions.
Very bright.
But he's not stupid. Okay?
No.
And Kareem Abdul-Jabbar knows that. So, quite frankly, a little bit of shame on Abdul-Jabbar for calling him a dumb jock.
Agreed.
Because the same things that Abdul-Jabbar, who's brilliant, a great competitor, a tremendous winner, the same things that would bother Kareem about anything to do with race or brains or anything, right?
Yeah.
Kareem would say, whoa, slow down, because he's a brilliant guy. And I guarantee his former coach, John Wooden, would have probably said, no. That's not exactly what we learned here. So I slow the roll a little bit about the dumb jock thing. Of all the things, hell, that bothers me more than Aaron Rodgers being vaccinated. I could care. Listen, if I'm a teammate of his, I'd still show up and I'd still root for him. I'd say, listen, I still love you. You do it now, but there are consequences. It's in a game that they lost, and frankly, they would have won.
No question.
They would have won
easily.
Aaron would have been there. So he carries that burden, but I don't carry the motherfucker. That burden he does.
Right.
So that's on him. And neither does Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Neither does some media guy in Boston or some media guy in Houston or some fan in Pittsburgh. You can complain all you want, but I don't care if Aaron Rodgers, if he misled people, didn't offend me, okay, whatever. And if he misled the organization, then take it up with him. You guys go behind closed doors and talk about it, or say we should have done this, we should have. There are consequences with decisions, and Aaron Rodgers knows that. And he's got to answer to teammates respect-wise and all that. But when it comes to him knowing his body, I know people say, well, he doesn't know more than the doctors. Well, listen, maybe not. But you know what? Fauci doesn't know Aaron Rodgers' body more than Aaron Rodgers does either.
Right.
Listen, I'm all for vaccinations, but I'm also all for the people who feel for them the vaccination and or how they go about their business of health is not necessary. Hence, I'm not a doctor. I'm sure shit not the GM of the Packers. I'm not the wide receiver for the Packers. And I'm not some high and mighty guy that wants to call everybody that we get to judge what they feel. The same things that we have hated in society is exactly what we do to shame people who don't want to do it. He'll answer that call to his teammates and the players. He doesn't owe one fan in Minnesota or me or you one friggin' explanation. Teammates, family, organization, and go from there. So listen.
All right.
I'm not going to judge him on it, but my thing is I think that we have just browbeat him to death over a decision he made. And I think a lot of it's because it's Aaron Rodgers and because they feel like they were misled, like he owes everybody a damn explanation.
I'm right with you on that. All right, I want to move forward. I want to give you the team that I was most impressed with over this weekend and the team I was most disappointed in, and they played one another. No Derrick Henry, and the Tennessee Titans came out and they dominated a football game on the road against a good team. Defensively, they were in beast mode. It was so impressive. Tannehill was very efficient. They were able to run the ball. They were able to do everything they needed to do to beat a good football team. Conversely, and you and I have talked about this, we talk about until it happens, I don't know whether an individual can do it or not.
Right.
And I'm talking about Matthew Stafford in big games. That was a big game to me. NBC, I know it's November, it's regular season, but he looked lost out there. And I'm not discrediting what the Titans did defensively. I thought his pocket presence and awareness was terrible. I thought a lot of his reads were very bad. And if I'm a Rams fan, I can't forget what I watched on Sunday night, because the Rams are going to be in the playoffs. If they don't win the division against Arizona, they'll be a wild card. So they're going to be in the playoffs. You played quarterback in the NFL. You studied the position. You work with quarterbacks all the time. If I'm a Rams fan, should I be nervous about what I saw from Matthew Stafford on Sunday night when January's right around the corner?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I'm probably not as concerned yet as you, because I look at it like this, Grant. I think it's a hell of a point by you. He did it against Tampa and played great at home, and he didn't play great in this one against Tennessee at home. So I give him against big shot type of teams that are going to be in the postseason. Now, I know he's played other teams. He'll play other, but those two that stick out of the extremes, he dueled with Brady and then got out-dueled by, even though the numbers didn't say out-dueled, Tannehill threw for $143. They ran for Peterson ran for like 21 yards or whatever it was, but they executed better. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt on judging January just yet, but I'm with you. To answer your question, should there be a little bit of concern? Yeah, because you know what? The guy that they had there previously gave him the shit like that already. That's what they were. Make no mistake about Sean McVay's love for his players and respect for players, and Sean McVay respects the game. But I can damn well tell you two things, in my opinion, why Sean McVay moved on. He didn't think that his quarterback could handle the big moment again.
Yep.
Okay, in Jared Goff. And he felt like the skill set and the balls that with Matt Stafford is, that's my opinion from a distance, why you would get rid of a guy a year and a half or so removed from a Super Bowl, right? A year and a few months, meaning Jared Goff, before they got rid of him. All right. And you listen, you gave up all those assets for a guy who, quite frankly, hasn't shown you anything in Detroit in the postseason because they don't get there. So it's a guessing game. I hold Stafford in such high regard, but we are still guessing. We are still guessing of what he's going to be like when it's nut cutting time, Grant, in the playoffs. So
that's my point.
A hell of a question. I'm going to tell you right now. Vrabel knows how to. Kyle Shanahan, injuries, the rest of it needs to take a page out of Mike Vrabel. Injuries, the best running back in the league out. A quarterback throws for 143. Somebody else steps up their game. Cliff Kingsbury with Colt McCoy. I'm so tired of injury excuses because you know what Vrabel, as a former player, said? I really don't give a shit about injury excuses. I'm putting words in his mouth. We're going to line up and play. We're going to go into L.A., and we're going to take care of their business when nobody thought we would. It was a wacko weekend.
Hey, John Harbaugh's the same way. John Harbaugh's the same way with his team. Right.
Yes, because you know what? John Harbaugh's dad and Jim wouldn't have let their dad do it. He'd have made him go out in the ocean and battle it with each other on a surfing trip, right? And Jim tells John tells a friggin' great story about that. Those two, like from 3 years ago, Jim was pissed off about John, something that in a competition, like in a game. And so Jim went out there and they were like on a family vacation. They got in a fight in the ocean because Jim was still pissed at John like 3 years later. And he goes, John, this guy's a friggin' whack job. And he meant it affectionately, right? But the competitiveness. And I think that permeates to his players. Like, I really don't care. The backup's on the roster for a reason because his ass has got to be ready to play. And you saw Tennessee do that. Yes, you do have alarm for a little bit of, okay, we're even here with Stafford. Which one's showing up? You're damn right you got a reason to believe that.
All right, you know how I feel about Odell Beckham. I've been telling you that from the day I've met you. I'm not a fan of his. You can't just tell me it's a coincidence that when he's not with the team, Baker Mayfield looks like a completely different quarterback. I mean, yeah, I know that the defense came up with a huge play early in the game to set the tone, a 97, 98-yard, pick six. But Baker Mayfield was outstanding. Odell is gone. Have you been around players, and I know you have, but I want to ask you what the effect is, because I see it in the NBA. But in the NBA, it's different because you only have 12, 13, 14 other guys in the locker room. When you have one guy that sucks the air out of the room in the NBA, it's a real issue. Is it the same thing in the NFL? And I'm not saying that Odell sucked the air out of the room, but what I am saying is there's a lot of baggage and a lot of bullshit that you have to put up when he's on your team, because that's what it is.
It's 2 versus 2, right, Grant? You got talent, supreme talent, and hype on the left side, and you got headache. Is it a migraine or a small headache? You have to decide that as the organization that takes him on. And production on the other. What outweighs the most right now? Quite frankly, right now, hype and a potential and talent are the ones that outweigh the production and the production and the performance, basically, what you're getting out of him, right? Is fitting in. So you got to say, well, the headache's a little bit, the headache's kind of big, but the production and the performance do not match the hype and the potential, right? All that talent. But does he actually, when you see him go to a team, do you think that, oh, shit, they're 10 times better right now? That answer is no. Now, no. 10 times more talented at the position? Maybe. So
based on what, though?
That on talent alone. That's based all I'm saying.
But we haven't seen it in over 3 years. That's
my point, is based on past. That's why, for me, right now, Odell Beckham's a talented, just a guy wide receiver. I don't have anything against the guy. Hell, I've never been on a team. Sure, he's a nice enough guy, but from me, if I'm a general manager, is it worth the headache? Is he making us better instantly? Like the talk about Seattle, right, Grant? Well, I was listening to a morning show. I'll leave it out to the fellas that are talking on one of those morning hot take talk shows, right? And a radio show mixed in, and they said, well, what is Odell? What is OBJ? Everybody using the acronym, right? What is OBJ? Is he going to be okay going somewhere that he'd have to share the ball like in Seattle with Lockett and DK Metcalf? Do you actually think I give a shit if he wants to share? He's the third receiver if he comes in. Now, he's as talented as any of them, but the production and the headache make the lack of production and the hype. Which one do you want more? So to me, if Odell Beckham's a Seattle Seahawk, he's their third best wide receiver right now. And based on production, he's got to give me. So
no question.
I don't need him. Listen, he's got to fit into my team. I don't have to fit into his shit. So
absolutely,
I'm a fan of his skill set. But you know what, Grant? And he may go and catch 40 balls down the stretch and catch that slant and go the distance. I've seen it. But when are we going to quit saying, well, man, he's going to make everybody better? Okay, you know what? Let's see it. And like I said, nothing against him, but I'm not like standing in line to get Odell Beckham, Grant. I don't know about you, but I'm just not.
And I'm not standing in line to get the free Odell T-shirts. And I got to tell you, that would drive me fucking crazy if that is embarrassing for the Minnesota Vikings and the NFL. It really is. And maybe I'm going overboard here. Maybe I'm nitpicking too much. But when I see players on another team wearing free Odell T-shirts, free Odell making $7.5 million, who's been basically cut, and like players on another team wearing free Odell T-shirts, what the fuck is that, Sean? Seriously.
It's the same players who will get their ass kicked by 40 in a game and exchange jerseys out on the field as opposed to going behind the scenes and doing it in a locker room. So listen, Grant, there goes the hype again. Now, they all know how talented the guy is because when he catches the ball in space, forget it. But I got to get him to be working with the team. And he and Baker were on the same page. And all the loud talking from parents and wives. And okay, we've had that discussion. So for me, okay, why would you pass on him on the waiver wire if you loved him? Well, why would you? Why? Okay, I'll tell you why. Because they will echo the things we're talking about. I don't know who I'm getting. An injury-prone, super talent, underproductive guy in the last 3 years, injury-prone, or am I getting the first few years where he set the world on its ear and we think we're getting a Hall of Fame receiver? Because he's nowhere near that now. Hall of Fame talent doesn't equal Hall of Fame production. If you get him, he's got to fit into my system. I'm not catering my offense to Odell Beckham. he'll have to fit in or he should go somewhere else.
All right, a team that I thought was going to come out of the AFC, and they still may, but the Buffalo Bills had a horrific loss on Sunday to a bad Jacksonville team. You know, they started off the season with a bad loss against Pittsburgh at home. They rebounded. They looked like, okay, these are the real Buffalo Bills. Lost a tight game in Tennessee. No issue there. But, man, I look at the Buffalo Bills, and I'm like, okay, I thought they were going to take that step up. And, listen, I understand that everyone kind of misses a beat every now and then, but good teams shouldn't lose to Jacksonville. And I'm looking at Josh Allen. I'm looking at some of the mistakes. Again, I asked you this question about the Rams. I'm going to ask you this question for the Bills fans. Should they be a little concerned with what they're seeing right now?
Yeah, I wouldn't be concerned about the quarterback, but I'm concerned about a few other things. Now, he threw a couple picks, almost looked like he reverted back to being a little bit of a rookie. I'll tell you what they got to guard against, Grant, in my opinion. The hero syndrome starts to kick in when you're not running the ball. We're not dominating in certain areas. And that guy's so gifted. Well, look in Kansas City. We're seeing the same thing. Not making the normal plays that they normally make, but still able to make the spectacular play. And you get caught up in that. And then what happens? You force 2 or 3 throws that you shouldn't. And some years they end up in your receiver's hands.
Yeah.
And some years they end up in some weeks in somebody else's hands. So, yeah, they got 3 losses now, Grant. I had them and they may go on a 10-game run or 9-game run. They're capable of it. Well
right.
coached. They're good. But I had them as the number 1 seed going into the season in the AFC. And as far as the AFC goes, I don't even know who the best team is, quite frankly. Baltimore? I mean, if I lined up Baltimore, can they beat anybody? Yeah. Yet I got 4 or 5 or 6 teams that can beat everybody, but none of them are great. The NFC is better, period, right now, the NFC than the AFC. So, yeah, I'm concerned about Buffalo because they let a Jacksonville team push them around. They let the opening game of the season, they weren't ready to play Pittsburgh, which was shocking. And then their third loss. So they've got some friggin' work to do. Who was their third loss against? Was it Tennessee?
It was Tennessee by 3 points.
Tennessee.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. So, I'm not worried about Buffalo going away, but I'll tell you what, the Patriots are looming, and Mac Jones is well beyond his years. And put it this way, Buffalo doesn't want to go on the road in January.
Yep.
They need to stay home. They can win on the road, but I think they're more equipped. And they need to run the ball better and more efficiently on a consistent basis. And Josh Allen can't be their second leading rusher. He's not Lamar Jackson.
2 things about New England. Very interesting game this week. They host Cleveland. But this is what drives me crazy. And I talked about this when I saw the schedule come out, and I'm going to talk about it again. How the fuck does the NFL schedule a divisional opponent twice in a span of 3 weeks? And if you look at New England's schedule, they played Buffalo coming up in December twice in a span of 3 weeks. How fucking stupid is that? Seriously.
I've hated that every year. Every year it feels like I see somebody do that, right? Now, if you want to do that in November for scheduling because of odd games and all, okay. But to do that the last month of the season, when the division's probably going to come down to that, Grant, because I don't think New England's going to go away. Belichick, Mac Jones is they're doing some decent things there, right? They are, and I'm with you. Listen, we can do a whole show on NFL scheduling and refereeing and horse shit calls.
How about last night? How bad was that last night?
I can't listen. I wouldn't want their job. I wouldn't be any good at it. I wouldn't have the patience for it. But I can tell you this. If you did your job or somebody did their job continually to the point where it's like, dude, what? What? And what? We'd look and say, nah, man, you sure as heck wouldn't be a head referee somewhere or a CEO somewhere, right? They got to do better. We ask our players to do better. Our referees should be held to the same standard. They got to do better. And not even just for the length of the game, but you just can't make horseshit calls. Simple. You just can't with the naked eye that are controllable. And then you also, if you're Tony Corrente, say what you want. Listen, we throw flags for no reason on some of these celebrations. We don't even know. There's no barometer of, is it this and this? I mean, where's the etched in stone? This is taunting. This isn't. Well, I love the swinging kick by the player. But Tony Corrente initiated that contact.
Yes,
he did, Grant. It was almost like he was egging him on. And Corrente's been reffing for a long time, but they got to do better. And with that, the scheduling, like you said, those 2 teams in December got to play each other twice. There's got to be a way to separate the 2, right? Especially since they're the 2 best teams in the division, right? And have been for some time.
All right, if I'm the Raiders, I can't have a better game coming off a bad loss than Kansas City this weekend. That's a perfect opponent to me if I'm the Raiders coming off a week that was very bad. We know what happened with Ruggs. And then how about Arnett? How about your 2 first-round picks from 2020 are no longer with the team? I mean, it's unbelievable. Bad loss for the Raiders. Again, they dealt with a lot of stuff last week. I get that early start. I mean, I know though I'm making excuses here. The Giants are a bad football team. That's a bad loss for the Raiders. But again, if I'm looking at the big picture, they're still fine. They still have a chance to win the division. And guess what? They're coming home. I think it's Sunday night. A Kansas City team that I don't think is very good. I think the Raiders get back on track this week. I will be surprised, not shocked. I will be surprised if they lose at home to Kansas City because I don't think the Chiefs are a playoff team right now. I really don't.
I 100% agree, and the only reason you wouldn't be shocked is because Pat Mahomes plays quarterback, and you're waiting for a 480-yard,
right.
5-touchdown game at some point, right?
Right, right.
I don't think he's going to get it. I don't think he's going to get it against the Raiders. What do they do great right now, Grant? Even Mahomes is not playing great. What do the Chiefs do great right now? What do they do great? Run after the catch with Kelsey and Tyreek Hill, and
they don't do anything. Maybe.
What do they do great? They don't do anything great, right?
No, nothing.
Great. They sure so don't play great defense. Listen, they 13-7. They struggled with and I'm sure gamblers across the country were going nuts over the 6 when it was 6.5 or 7 points, went nuts. But everybody got their ass kicked gambling this past weekend on Saturday and Sunday, at least the public,
yes.
Right? It was a weird weekend. But I can tell you this, I'm with you. Not only do I not think they're a playoff team today, now they may go make it because Mahomes, but Grant, they just look so discombobulated at times, don't they? And I think the Raiders can actually boat race them. I do. I think they can win by 10 points in their building. I do. And I think they get back. Carr's playing better than Mahomes. I mean, listen, he's still the number 1 asset in the league. We know this. But great quarterbacks have bad times. And when he's trying to make up for all the other woes that they have, and they got him, I'm not even sure the Kansas City Chiefs believe they're that good right now, Grant. Now, with Mahomes, you're always capable. It's like having a pitcher that throws 101 of going out there and dominate 3 or 4 weeks. I think the Raiders can score a lot of points, and I think the Chiefs, it's more 3-and-outs than we're used to. I think the Raiders win the game, too.
Hey,
I think the Kansas City Chiefs are very average.
I agree. To me, the Chiefs were very lucky to beat a bad Giants team. The Giants went off sides on a ball they picked off. There were a couple of things that happened in that game that I thought the Chiefs were lucky to beat the Giants. They looked bad against Green Bay. I'm with you on the Raiders. I really am. Another game, and I was really surprised because they didn't just win the game. They dominated both sides of the line of scrimmage and pushed the Cowboys around, and that were the Denver Broncos. I mean, think about what they did to the Dallas line of scrimmage, both offensively and defensively. They controlled the entire line of scrimmage all game. Cowboys looked like a bad team on Sunday.
Well, the Cowboys looked like the team without Dak Prescott and last year's defense at times. They did. Now, Was it Teddy Bridgewater had his way? Denver looked like the Cowboys defense. The way the Cowboys defense has played this year, Dan Quinn's done a hell of a job. But they looked lost. They were not physical at the line of scrimmage. They got bullied. Bridgewater was far better than Prescott in the game, which we know he's not a better player, but Teddy was more efficient, protected the ball. And the Cowboys, they took a beat down from the get-go, and that it was like, here we go. And Denver stayed on it. Matter of fact, one of Denver's better performances for me in the last couple of years, considering where they were, who they played. And I actually, going into that game, could have made the argument that the Cowboys were as good as anybody in the NFL. Dan Quinn's got to get his defense back because the offense, Grant, they're going to pick it up. They're going to score. They just are. They're too good. They're going to score. But you see what happens when the offensive line gets pushed back towards the quarterback and you can't set your feet. And then the bootlegs are things you want to do that are built in, but setting your feet in the pocket, he likes to throw in rhythm, and he's a hell of a quarterback, Prescott. But Denver looked like the team that came in there and said, no, we're not believing all this crap. Vic Fangio had his team ready to play, and they dialed up a good plan. The Dallas Cowboys will get back at it, but they can't get creep into, okay, we had a bad defensive game. Let's let this fester 2 or 3 games. And like the touchdown that you saw down the left sideline or at the 1-yard line, the one Bridgewater threw that Diggs was covering him. Great coverage, just a friggin' that team's that's just a hell of a throw. You're going to lose some of them, right? But the Cowboys were pushed around. The physicality of the game, you hit it, Grant. The physicality of the game was a little more shocking for me with the Cowboys. So let me reverse this to you. Are the Dallas Cowboys the best team in the NFC in your mind? Not the record. Okay, let me throw a few of these at you while you mull this over. Take what you see now from all these teams. I'm going to stick to the NFC for a second. And pretend it's January, but this is how you see them playing. Fair enough? No, whether it's like Cowboys have been good most of the year, not the most recent game, but just kind of make it, put them all in a pot. They're the Cowboys, their whole season. And let's pretend that the playoffs start tomorrow. Fair enough? And I'm going to throw a couple scenarios at me. You tell me who wins and why. One, if the Green Bay Packers, and Arizona's my base for this, fair enough, because they're the number one seed in the NFC. And isn't it amazing how quick that changes? 2 weeks ago, the Bengals were the one seed. Now they're in last place in their division. It's crazy shit. All right. Packers play in Arizona. Rodgers is back. Everybody's good. And every scenario, you got to bet everything you own on the game. Who are you picking?
In that scenario, I'm picking Green Bay because of the quarterback.
Bingo. Okay. Right. Even though you got an MVP guy, Kyler Murray, who made 3 MVPs in the Super Bowl, right?
Who's Rodgers. And he is the MVP right now this year as we speak. Now, that could change, but right now, today, if you were giving the award, it's going to Murray. Okay, give me your second scenario.
Okay. So you got that. You're betting there. All right. Matt Stafford goes to Arizona, plays Arizona. Who are you betting on?
Arizona. I'm not a believer in Stafford. I'm not. I'm going with Arizona.
He's got some impressing to do to you, right?
Yep.
Okay. But I think Arizona overall, while the Rams got the credit, I think Arizona is just playing more free and confident right now. I would take Arizona. All right. Let me give you the 1, 2. I'm just making sure. The NFC North, NFC East, the Dallas Cowboys. Who are you taking? In Arizona in January.
I'm taking Arizona.
Dallas versus Arizona.
I'm taking Arizona by a whisker, and I'll tell you why. I'm looking at maybe I shouldn't do this. I'm looking at the history of Jerry Jones and the Cowboys, and what can go wrong does go wrong.
But that's so unfair to them, though, isn't it?
Yes.
Wouldn't that be like me saying, well, hell, that interception I threw as a freshman, of course I'm going to throw it as a sophomore. But let me back up your validate. Let me validate you. I shredded my knee as a sophomore at Arizona State in their stadium. I went back there 2 years later, my senior year, and had to shredded my knee on the same field, the same side of the field, going the opposite way.
All right.
So maybe that does repeat itself.
Okay. All right. So I know you would take Dallas in that game.
I would take the Cowboys.
I know. All right, but now I'm going to throw. Okay. All right, now I'm going to throw you a scenario because you haven't given me this scenario yet. Playoff game in January.
I was
Dallas.
This one for last. If you're okay,
Dallas, Tampa Bay, and I am going to go with Tampa because here's what I do know. Tom Brady will not lose the game in January. He may not win it, but he's not going to lose it. As good as Dak Prescott has been this year, I can't say that about Dak. He's made some overthrows in the playoffs. He has not been the guy. And so I know Brady's not going to do that. So for that reason, in January, I'm going with the Bucks.
Over Dallas.
Yes, right? Over Dallas.
Yes, okay. So I was saving Tampa Bay for the last one with this. NFC Championship game, Brady versus Murray in Arizona. Who are you taking?
I'm probably going with Tampa.
So am I.
Right.
So am I. So my point is, the team with the best record and probably the MVP, who's playing out of their mind, and Cliff Kingsbury's doing a hell of a job. 2 of the 4 scenarios, we took the NFC team, Brady and Rodgers, the older quarterbacks, and Prescott close, and you had him over Stafford. Look at all 5 of those teams, Grant, I think are capable of winning the NFC, right? So, and the truth is with Brady, on the road, no matter where I put him, I will not bet against him in January. I would take him over every team, just like I did against Green Bay last year when they went on the road, just like I did all those years in New England. If they just get to 12 wins and they're in the playoffs and they got to go, let's say somebody has 13, the safest pick in the world on the road to me in the NFL is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with Brady because he's seen it all. They may not be the best team, but I would take him on the road. So that's my point. Even though Arizona's got the best record, if you had to bet everything, you would take Tampa over Arizona in Arizona to get to the Super Bowl. Yes or no?
Yes. Of course. Yes. All right. I'm going to throw a scenario at you, and I wanted you to talk to me about numbers and whether I get too caught up in numbers. So Aaron Rodgers, 5 NFC Championship games is 1-4. He's lost at home in the cold, where people said, "Oh, the Packers won't lose in the frigid cold." Well, that has happened. He's lost on the road.
Right.
Of the teams that we just mentioned, who do you think is the one defense? I don't want to go quarterback versus quarterback here. I want to talk about matchups. I want to talk about Green Bay's offense against which defense gives him the most issues, which to me means you got to be able to get to the quarterback. When Rodgers suffers, it's because he gets knocked around. He's not as mobile as he once was. Yeah, he can elude, but the point is he's not the way he was a couple of years ago. Give me that one defense that you think is a bad matchup if you're looking at it from Rodgers' perspective.
Are we looking in the NFC? Just the
Yes.
NFC?
Only NFC.
NFC? To me, it's two of them. We've seen the movie already, and they know they got to carry a team as long as the offense doesn't get them in trouble. The Saints pose a major problem. They're urgent. They're playing the New Orleans Saints. They're gonna make the playoffs, I think, even without Winston. They give Aaron Rodgers, because we saw it in the opener. I know it was the opener, but they rushed. They're good against the run, and they can play. But to me, it's still Tampa, because they got linebackers that can run. They already proved they get up the field, and they already went into their building and put it on them last year. Right. And it's the same damn team. The exact same team is coming back. Now, the problem is, the difference is you better get that back end right, because if you don't get to Rodgers and that back end isn't healthy or making plays, he will carve them up if you leave him in a clean pocket. So Tampa and Saints pose some. Now, the Rams obviously are going to pose a problem with Aaron Donald and Von Miller and Jay. They should pose a problem. But I already have seen the movie with the Saints and Tampa. Now, Aaron's good at adjusting. But yes, and the truth is, of all the quarterbacks in the NFC going on the road or playing at home, if I had to rate them, it'd be hard-pressed for me to not take Brady and then Rodgers second in the NFC under any scenario with all hell breaking loose around him, right? But I think that as long as if you got guys that can get up the field and you can take him out of his rhythm, take the receivers off their mark, that's when you could probably force Aaron to do some things. Although he's great off schedule and off balance. Urgent rush and Tampa Bay's edge guys and their linebackers run like hell. And New Orleans has already devised a plan that gave him fits in the opener. Now they'll readjust because they may see them again in the postseason.
Here's one team just to keep your eye on because of their quarterback coming back in Russell Wilson. They're 3-5. If they lose at Green Bay Sunday, they're done. They're not going to come back from 3-6. So, and I'll tell you the one thing I've noticed about teams that are well coached, and I think Seattle's well coached, even though you can.
They would have to win all 7 games, Grant. If they go 3-6, they're going to have to win all 7 games.
That's right. Not going to happen
in the NFC. Right.
Veteran teams with veteran quarterbacks that are in an absolute do or die normally respond. I know this is a tall order for Seattle. We don't know yet about Aaron Rodgers, although if he's cleared on Saturday, he'll be on the field Sunday. How do you see this game? And again, Russell Wilson hasn't played in a while, so this is an intriguing matchup on Sunday at Lambeau.
If Russ plays and Aaron doesn't, although the Packers defense is better this year, I like what I saw against Kansas City. And I'll tell you what, is it Hughes? I think it was Hughes. Dude, they got some guys that run. They got some guys that will knock the shit right out of you. and you know, normally we're talking about Green Bay. We're talking about all the perimeter weapons. Right now we're talking they can disrupt you. They gave Mahomes some fits as well over the weekend. If Russ is playing and Aaron's not, take Seattle. Because we saw, I don't think Jordan Love's capable of out-dueling a stud quarterback right now. I think Jordan Love will be fine, but if he's playing, I'll always take the better quarterback in the situation because Green Bay's not that much better than Seattle without their quarterback. As a matter of fact, they're not better. They may have better talent in certain areas, but Seattle. Now, if Rodgers is playing and it's at Lambeau, and I had to, you put my feet to the fire and I got to bet it, I'm taking Aaron Rodgers at home over Russ Wilson in the building just because Aaron Rodgers, and you already know, Grant, he's going to be pissed. He want to seek revenge on all the people that are talking shit about him because he's a scorekeeper. And that's one of his great advantages. He's a big scorekeeper.
All right, I want to talk some college football. And boy, oh boy, what a fucking weekend.
Oh.
I mean, right? I mean, I don't even know where to start other than the consistency of Georgia and their defense, which, you know, we talk about it every single week. And we see teams that we think, well, gee, you know, Michigan State beats Michigan, then they're knocked off. You look at Oregon, you look at, I don't know about Cincinnati because they don't play anybody other than Notre Dame. And Alabama, you know, LSU, a bad team, stayed with them right to the end, which I'm like, wow, how does that happen at Bryant-Denny? But then the one consistent team week in, week out, the Georgia Bulldogs, right?
They score enough. They beat your brains in. They can run. They run the football. They're physical at the line of scrimmage. and their quarterback's feisty enough to make enough plays with his feet and his arm. Grant, I'll
Yep.
be honest with you. I haven't seen a better. You can give me all the Alabama you want. I understand they're really good. They got a better pure passer, obviously, and Bryce Young's a better quarterback. But I'm not sure the quarterback beats the defense this year, Grant. I rarely go, normally we're in an offensive league in NFL and high school and college and Sundays. I'm convinced that Georgia's defense is that good, and they're good enough to put it. If they post 20 in a game, I'm not sure anybody's going to get there. And I'm talking about Alabama too. So let me throw a few things at you. Let's just have some fun with this playoff scenario real quick.
Yeah.
Alabama is not going to lose unless it's the SEC, in my opinion. The SEC championship game, right?
Yeah.
That would be against
Georgia.
I mean, Georgia's not going to lose. Georgia's not going to lose. And then the SEC championship game, let's say they don't lose. Obviously, they're the 1 seed. If Alabama doesn't lose again, they're still going, right? Or do you think a 2-loss Alabama team?
No, they're out.
Who'd Alabama? I agree. Okay, Alabama has to win the SEC championship game
right.
to stay alive, correct?
Right.
If Georgia only loses that game, they're still in.
Unless
the SEC champion.
Unless it's like an overtime loss to Georgia or something crazy like that. Maybe.
For
maybe.
Alabama.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Right.
Right. But if Georgia runs the table and then gets beat in the SEC championship game by Alabama, Georgia's still going.
Absolutely.
And Alabama would go. So
no question.
Let's assume that. Let's just say that happened.
Okay.
For the first scenario. So both of them are going. Now we get down to Oklahoma's got to play Baylor this week. They got to deal with Oklahoma State, and they still got Iowa State.
Right.
And if this kid can run the table, if Oklahoma goes undefeated, you have to put them in.
Absolutely. They will be.
You got to put them in. All right. So let's say they're in and they run the table, which it's going to be difficult to run. Baylor's going to be pissed this week, right? It's going to be a difficult task. Then you say Oregon. Oregon's schedule is as easy as anybody's. They don't play Southern Cal, although that's not a big task this year. They handled Washington. They got one tough game left, Utah. And Kyle Whittingham's team will be physical, and I think they play him in Salt Lake City. Let's assume they beat Utah. Oregon State, I know the Civil War, but Oregon's better than them. They should win. Oregon State just fired the defensive coordinator. So, Grant, with that, let's say Oregon runs the table, wins the Pac-12 championship, and is, 11-1, right?
Right.
So they got one loss. All right, so now we got Oregon, an undefeated Oklahoma team. So now we got 3 teams in just for fun. Who wins? Okay, does a one-loss – now Michigan's got to play – Penn State this week. They still have Ohio State, right? We know that Michigan is alive. Michigan State, I guess, conceivably is still alive with one loss, even though Ohio State's still alive. And then there's Cincinnati. Other than that, there's nobody else available. Right? ACC's not sending anybody. We know that.
No.
Nobody goes. So, okay, so now let me give you this. Alabama loses to Georgia. Alabama's out.
Out.
Oklahoma, the Big Ten winner, correct?
Yep.
Oklahoma, the Big Ten winner, Georgia, and then who is it? Is it a one-loss Oregon team that's got a pretty horseshit schedule, although they beat Ohio State on the road? Is it a one-loss Ohio State team that has a tougher schedule but got beat by Oregon? Or is it Cincinnati who beat Notre Dame and has an easy schedule the rest of the way, and they should go undefeated?
It helps Cincinnati right now that Notre Dame has climbed back up, and I think they're 7th. Right. That's it. That bodes very well for Cincinnati. If you're asking me, I don't think Cincinnati deserves to be in the college football playoff with their schedule. That's just my opinion. I know a lot of people disagree with me. Okay. But but I believe you're asking me what I think will happen. I think if they end up undefeated, and I think they will, I think Cincinnati will be in the college football playoff. But I personally don't think they should be. I don't think their schedule deserves that recognition.
And it's only getting easier as they roll along here in the season, right? So they have to be impressive with the eye test as well, correct? And that may not get him in. So let's say they're undefeated, Grant, and then all of a sudden that they're undefeated and Oklahoma's undefeated.
Yep.
And Oregon's got one loss at 11-1, and they're the Pac-12 champs. And Ohio State and or Michigan got one loss. Okay, so now we got Oklahoma. Let's just Oklahoma, and if Alabama beats Georgia, whatever. So if there's one team left to get in, and it's Oregon.
Yep.
The Oregon, the Big Ten winner, or Cincinnati. Aren't that really? It's about a 7-horse race, right? We already know Georgia's in for the most part, as long as they don't piss down.
Yeah, they're in.
If Oklahoma runs the table, they're automatically in.
They're in. Yes.
And it'll be difficult because they got to be Bedlam against Oklahoma State. Baylor coming off an a loss to the backup quarterback. Chad Morris's kid threw for almost 500 yards on their ass, right? In Fort Worth. So if it's Cincinnati undefeated, Oregon 1 loss, and let's just say Ohio State 1 loss, and they played each other as a common opponent. You believe, honestly, I know you don't believe they should be in. You think the committee would take Cincinnati undefeated over Oregon or Ohio State, or Michigan if they beat Ohio State?
Well, first of all, if both Oregon and Ohio State end up with 1 loss and Ohio State gets in over Oregon, that's a fucking travesty. Oregon went into Columbus and they beat them, and they beat them convincingly. Okay. And I don't care that the game was in September. You cannot ignore that game if they only have 1 loss. All right. And you can't say, well, the game was at Oregon. No, the game was at the Horseshoe. Okay. So to me, under that scenario, 1 loss Ohio State, 1 loss Oregon, Ohio State's out. There's no way in the world I can put them ahead of Oregon.
Fair enough. Okay. 1 loss Michigan team, 1 loss Oregon team, undefeated Cincinnati team.
Well, again, I would not pick. I personally would not have Cincinnati in. I think they're going to put Cincinnati in. I really do.
Even though Cincinnati now, as a record, their schedule gets easier.
Yep.
They were pushed to 6th, Grant, and teams ahead of them where you're like, what? So all of a sudden, the committee, you think they're going to have a wake-up call and say, like, the schedule got easier when Michigan's got to deal with Ohio State.
Yep.
Penn State, Ohio State, right? And Oregon's got to play Utah. And not that, Utah's playing better. Kyle Whittingham's physical, and they'll give him a game. I don't know, Grant, I'm not sure how.
Don't you think let me ask you this.
I just don't know how. I don't know how they jump Michigan. I don't know how they do it.
You know what Cincinnati reminds me of? They remind me of Boise State. When Boise State had that great, and people were like, they don't deserve to go, blah, blah, blah. And they had that great game against
Oklahoma in the bowl game.
Oklahoma. Yeah. All right. And so I know I shouldn't make my decision based on that. But what I'm saying is I'm against Cincinnati because of their schedule. But I'm not saying they're not a really good football team. And I'm also not saying I'm not saying that they couldn't win the first game in the college football playoff. But if they're playing Georgia, I don't think they would score more than 17 points. That's my opinion. But let's just say that they don't.
They'd be lucky.
Yeah. So let's say that Cincinnati gets in and they don't play Georgia. Could I see them beating Ohio State? Could I see them beating Oregon? Could I see that all the Oklahoma? Listen, I don't know how. The only game that I can really judge Cincinnati on is a month ago when they went into South Bend and beat Notre Dame. Yes, that was a signature win, but that's it. I look at Oregon, I look at Ohio State, I look at Oklahoma, I look at all the other teams. They've got more than just one signature win, right? So I'm going to ask you. You ask me. You tell me then. You're not putting Cincinnati in the Final Four, are you?
I want to, Grant, but I can't. If they listen, it's not because they're not good, because I've won a lot of money on Cincinnati this year gambling, like 4 different weeks. So I want to hug those guys and say, man, get your ass to the Final Four. I'm in. But in truth, and this is not, listen, I get it. You only play the people that are there, right?
Yeah.
But now, do I think that on a good day, if Cincinnati plays their best football, that they could go in and give Ohio State everything they wanted? You're damn right I do.
I do too.
Do I believe that they could take an undefeated Oklahoma team, and if they contain that quarterback a little bit, Williams at Oklahoma, that they can beat Oklahoma on a neutral site? You sure shit believe they can. But if you're asking me, 1 loss. Now, see, I got it up with the Oregon thing, even though thank goodness they beat Ohio State for them, because if they wouldn't, just with the Pac-12 schedule, Pac-12's been horseshit this year, and that's my conference.
Yep.
So I would knock them down, even though they'd be a conference champion, for playing. It's been bad football in the Pac-12.
Yep.
Even good teams like Arizona State have started to falter.
Yep.
For me, it would be the Big Ten winner, Michigan or Ohio State, that I would take with 1 loss over Cincinnati with no loss.
All right. Fair enough.
Have to.
Fair enough, man.
If Ohio State runs the table from here on in, and Cincinnati runs the table. Michigan loses to Ohio State, they'd be out anyway. And Oregon runs the rest of the table. They have one loss. Georgia and Alabama, let's say they're in. Oregon's got one loss. Ohio State's got one loss. And Cincinnati's got one loss. Yet I'm going to tell you, Grant, and Oklahoma is undefeated and they get in. If it comes down to Ohio State, Oregon, and Cincinnati, my question is, do those two one-loss teams cancel each other out and Cincinnati does get in? The question is, if Oregon's already ahead of Ohio State and they both go undefeated the rest of the way, are we actually going to jump them and say that Ohio State's win over Michigan, if they beat them, would be more impressive than Oregon beating Ohio State? It's going to come down to about three teams, and you know it. Because I do believe that Georgia's going. I think Grant, I'm telling you, I still think they'd be tempted to put Alabama in with two losses. I'm dead serious. I do. I think if they lost in the SEC championship game, I think they'd be tempted to do it.
It would have to be really close. It would have to be a field goal game at the end. That's the only way. Only way.
But you know damn well they're going to banter about that shit, though.
I know.
You know they are.
I know.
They are.
I've watched Alabama play a lot this year, and I'm still waiting for their defense to show up. And I know Nick Saban was very complimentary after the game, but I'm sorry. LSU has had a real bad season. They were in Bryant-Denny, and they stayed with Alabama the whole game. Tennessee stayed with them until the fourth quarter. I know that they ended up losing badly. I still don't like what I see from Alabama's defense. I don't like the way they tackle. They're giving up too many big plays. And that, to me, is not a Nick Saban coach team. And I don't know why I should just expect that to change. As a matter of fact, I believe that they'll beat Arkansas handily, but I'm not so sure that Auburn game is not going to be a game that goes right down to the wire because it's at Auburn.
That's exactly. Bo Nix has got a little moxie to him, right? And it's a rivalry game. We know how that goes. I'm with you. I don't think you can fix a defense this late in the season. You can make adjustments in a game, but I'll tell you when you have to fix it is that month between the last game of the season and the final four. Right. That's when you better get it right. But I can't fix physical with the current roster if you're not physical, which is what we don't normally say that about an Alabama team. So I think if you played Alabama and Georgia, it's one of those that comes down to it's our finesse versus your beasts, right? Who's going to win this game?
You know what's interesting? You just said something that resonated with me. When I watch Georgia, I look at a physical, in-your-face defense. And yet, when I watch other college teams, I think that the less physicality, the physicality that has dropped off, I believe is because of the way the game is officiated now and the targeting. Okay. And I think because of the targeting, you don't see the defense that you were accustomed to when you played or even 10 years ago. But yet I don't really notice that when I watch Georgia. When I watch Georgia, I wouldn't even know there is a targeting rule. I mean, it's amazing to me.
Agreed. You know what, Grant? I think they're so well taught right now on tackling. But you know when people do stupid things is when they're out of position. When they all of a sudden a guy runs an option right out of the backfield and you get burned and you're out of position. Or a guy runs a double move on you and he goes and all of a sudden you got to catch up. Or a guy comes over the middle and you're playing careless football because, oh my gosh, I got a little out of position and you hit him late or you drop the helmet. I think Kirby Smart has taught those guys so damn well. Not that other coaches don't, but they're reacting to it. And they know how good they are. And they know that they don't have to do that shit. Target people. Matter of fact, guard against it. But Grant, they're also a great tackling team. They're physical. You know what it reminds me of? They play with hate, man. Controlled hate. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
See, if you just play with hate and you're flying around and your helmet's down and you're not playing, it's disciplined hate. When I see them, I feel like I'm not comparing them to this team, but I remember when we played against the Bears in the 80s and that feeling of it was going to be a full-blown fist fight. If you beat them, you walked home and said, like in Rocky when he said, there's going to be no rematch. I don't want one, right? That's what it would feel like. Right. I think when you play Georgia, when you walk off the field, you're so physically drained, but the emotional and mental drain from every fucking play. You're either getting hit in the mouth, they're not out of position. It's like, or they're just relentless to the point you say, at some point, they're going to get you, right? But the key is they're getting you without committing penalties and doing stupid stuff on the field for the most part. If they have a game against a good offense and they decide they're going to have one of those 12 penalty undisciplined games, you may see trouble because they're not exactly the most, oh my gosh, out of all the quarterbacks that are going to be in the playoff, he's probably the least gifted one, but he's a gamer, right? He's a guy who runs around, former transfer, and all that stuff that he went through. It was well documented on game day last year. But Grant, watching them for me on defense, Georgia play, is the same thrill I get watching a masterful quarterback play on offense. And I don't usually say that about defenses. Every time, I don't care who they're playing, I got to watch them because they scare me on the TV set watching them play. That's how good they are.
You know, as a quarterback, I mean, you were talking about the Bears, and I love that defense, and I'm not sure which exact year you're talking about, but that defense with Singletary and Wilbur Marshall and Otis Wilson as your linebackers, and they're, you know, Richard Dent in the fridge and McMichael, and I mean, holy shit, they were so good everywhere on the field. I talked to Joe Theismann a lot about this, not about his leg, but every time you would go against the Giants twice a year, knowing that 56 is on the other side. And Joe Jacoby, who was a fucking great left tackle, he looked like he was in, you know, cement shoes trying to block Lawrence Taylor. Did you ever have that guy, whenever it was that you were in the game, and I don't want to maybe use the word that you were intimidated by, but like you just knew that was a guy that no matter what, on every fucking snap, you had to be looking at him and aware of everything he was doing?
Yeah, let me tell you a couple quick stories about that. One is, first of all, Wilbur Marshall, my first start in college at Florida, at the Swamp, my sophomore year. Wilbur Marshall, Bruce Matthews, Don Mospar, both on that team, both All-American first-round picks. Right. Wilbur Marshall, it's the greatest college defensive performance I've ever, and I was on the receiving end of it. He had 22 tackles and I think 4.5 sacks in the game. People still send me messages. Sean, do you remember this? You still feeling Wilbur Marshall? So I knew about Wilbur in college. It's the best individual college performance of a defensive player I've ever seen. And it was against me. And man alive, and it was the Swamp going crazy. I sat there after the game and thought, is this the way my career is going to be? And then we got back into it and started going. But he is the guy who made it. I mean, it was faster than everybody and made every tackle and every sack in the game. Right? So in the NFL, Grant, I always had to know where a guy like Dion lined up or Rod Woodson in the secondary. But usually it's a guy close to the line of scrimmage. Reggie White was that guy.
Oh yeah.
You didn't want to piss off Richard Dent because Richard sometimes would be a little casual, and then you cut him. It's like, don't fucking cut Richard Dent. Now he's pissed, right? And Richard, we used to joke about that. I'd say, man, we'd have you, and you're smiling. All of a sudden, the guy'd come in and cut you. It's like, oh fuck, Richard's pissed now. And then and Lawrence, I played against him and Gary Zimmerman and Randall McDaniel, two Hall of Famers on the same side. Trust me, guys on the team used to give Zim the hardest time because Zim was like a phenomenal technician and player. But whenever we play Reggie or Taylor, the fellas all week would say, "Hey, Zim, you just started sweating yet?" And Zim, I'm sure on the other side they're saying, "Fuck, you got to deal with Gary Zimmerman because he's a monster, right?" Zim was so friggin' good, and so I saw it. But I can tell you this: that Bears defense, all of them. Do you remember the Ohio State? He went through some difficult mental times. The first-round pick from Ohio State was like the 5th pick of the draft.
What are you talking about in that era, back in the 80s? For what team?
He played at Ohio State and was the Bears defensive end. He was a top 5 or 6 pick. Alonzo Spellman.
Oh,
remember
yeah.
The medalist. Let me tell you something, Grant. Now, here you said, have you ever been intimidated? The Pittsburgh Steelers team used to beat the shit out of you every time because they had all those linebackers. You knew you were in a fist fight with them, right? So I remember the first time we were playing Pittsburgh in Three Rivers, and Chad Brown, they had all those linebackers, and they constantly beat you. It's freezing. And we're running a 3-step hitch on the first play of the game in Three Rivers. And I throw a ball, and Chad Brown hits me right under the friggin' chin and drives me into the ground. And he's a buddy of mine. And he's on top of me. And I'm like, oh, it's in a 3-step drop. You shouldn't take those kind of hits, right? But he's a free runner. I go down, and he's laid on. He goes, "Sal, it's going to be a long day today, brother." And I said, "I know, and I'm not going anywhere." And so, I walked up. Every time I walked off the field, the backup quarterback he was a young kid, scared to death. I said, "Dude, listen, I'm not going to put you through this. They'll have to drag me off the field before I make you go through this." But the Bears, real quick, the most intimidating pregame warm-up team on the planet, Grant. The Spellman story: 6'4.5", 6'5", about 280. About a 30-inch waist. I'm not kidding you, dude. He'd wear a T-shirt with the sleeves cut off, and he was already had that white in his eyes. You know, he was at just I mean, had about 5% body fat. And his arms were his wingspan was Giannis times 5, right? And he had the striations everywhere. And McMichael had his pants. I always kid Steve because he had his pants pulled up to his boobs, right? and Hampton, and they'd walk around, dude, and Singletary, and it's like, ooh. You knew, again, that you were for a fist fight. And I watched Spellman. I said, damn, you didn't even want to look at it because you were afraid, because he was so physically intimidating. And then the game would start, no disrespect to him, but we'd have 185-pound back block the shit out of him. And he never, so he looked the part. But, and when he's playing, but man, you go up there and thump his ass, he disappeared at times, but you didn't want to say that to him in pregame warm-up because you're afraid you get, that his, just looking at you, he had muscle on top of muscle, and I couldn't find body fat if I wanted to on him, right? But he was friggin' intimidating in pregame, and nobody looked better in a uniform than him. But you could block him, but certain guys you couldn't block, nor did you want to, like the Taylors or the Reggie Whites, that you knew were going to make it an all-day affair, man. It was, but Spellman, best pregame intimidating physique. I mean, he was chiseled out of granite, and I'm not sure the granite would have had a chance, man. I'm serious. It was unreal. Scary.
Wow, what a great hour that was, man. Thank you. What a fucking great hour this was. Good talk.
Are we done already? Are we already done? Hey, college hoops tonight.
Yeah.
We got some great college hoops tonight.
Yes, right? Yes.
Oh, phenomenal. Who's winning the national title? Are you on UCLA's jock this year?
You know what? I'll tell you, I'm gonna go with a guy. First of all, I'm gonna be transparent. He's a friend of mine. I love what Eric Musselman's doing at Arkansas. I think they're gonna be really good. They took a step in a really good direction. I'll tell you who else. And I hate to be on, because I'm talking about football, what Nate Oates has done at Alabama with that team. I think those two teams are going to be battling for a Final Four berth. You caught me off guard on this. I am on.
It's not even just a few broad stroke teams. You know, Kansas.
Kentucky,
Those
you know what?
Gonzaga and UCLA, right?
I actually like Arkansas and Alabama more than Kentucky this year. I really do. I think both of those teams are going to be battling out in the SEC. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, this feels like Nolan Richardson's era when it comes to Arkansas. Athletic, they're going to play defense. They're going to get out there. And your guy is one hell of a coach, man. He is one hell of a coach. And everywhere he goes, they win. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So I'm interested to see if UCLA can live up to the hype. Pauley Pavilion hasn't been rocking like that
I know.
It's been a minute, right? So I'm anxious to see how they do. And then there's the typical blue blood programs, but you'll find some athletes. And Gonzaga is going to Gonzaga, right? They got tremendous athletes.
Well,
and
what's interesting is, you know, the three, and I'm going to leave North Carolina out of this right now, but Duke, Kansas, and Kentucky, you didn't even know they were playing basketball last year. And I know everything was screwed up because no crowds and all of that.
They did. They were bad.
They were bad. But you know what? When's the last time you could look at either of those programs and go, they were bad 2 years in a row, right? Right? When's the last time you could say that?
Yeah, and Coach K's, this is it for him, right? He's retiring.
Yeah.
So you know that everybody's going to be on high alert and play hard, and he's going to coach his ass off, and athletes along the way. And Carolina's going to Carolina, you know, with Roy. I mean, there's a lot to look forward to, and those teams don't usually, all three of them, those blue blood programs don't spend a whole lot of time letting losing seasons fester. And then, like you said, Arkansas. You know how athletic Gonzaga is going to be. UCLA on the Pac-12. It's going to be a fun run. And not to catch you off guard, I'm looking forward to tonight. And Tom Izzo's team will always be Tom Izzo, physical and battling in the Big Ten, right?
Here's the deal. What the fuck is a USC?
Howard's team too.
Hey, what the fuck is a USC alum building up UCLA basketball so much for? What the hell is wrong with you, man?
It's reverse psychology. I'm hoping we kick their ass. How's that?
Hey, have a good night, man.
You too, brother.
Good stuff.
Love you, man. Thank you.
Love you too.